Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Covington City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 8th. In compliance with state law, City Council special and regular meetings will be held in a hybrid format with in-person, telephonic, and virtual options for public viewing and participation. With that, we'll call this meeting to order. And Krista, if you'd please call the roll.
Yes, Councilmember Soltis.
I am here.
Councilmember Porter.
Here.
Councilmember Hartsock.
Here.
Councilmember Herjehausen.
Present.
Councilmember Simomo.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Wagner.
Here.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you, Krista. If everybody could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Next is approval of agenda. We are looking to add a new business item number 5, which is consider a resolution opposing the Kroger-Albertsons merger and authorizing joining the filing of an amicus brief. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
That's it.
Great. Look for a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda has been approved. Next is public communication. First is a presentation of our human services assessment. And we have Dr. Sarah Toto, Dr. Roger Schaefer, and Allison Mills. Did I get those correct? Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for being here. Looking forward to hearing what you found out. So thank you.
You have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not sure how I was able to navigate that from here.
The PowerPoint is being loaded as we speak, and there is a clicker there, and you should be able to press the arrows to advance the slides. Yes.
Well, thank you all again. I'm Sarah Toto. I'm very excited to be here with my colleague, Roger Schaefer. And then Allison Mills was our graduate student. We worked together as well as with Julie and Darren over here in a collaborative project to research and understand human services data collection, gaps, and needs. So today we will briefly over that because I know I've got a short amount of time, but please feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to answer any of them when we're done. So I'm going to go over just really briefly the purpose of this project, the methodology, and then most of it's going to focus on the results and then just a little bit on future considerations for what to do next. So the purpose of this was that we all here in Covington want to know, hey, what's going on? Do we have gaps in services? Do we have service awareness issues that we're not aware of? What does this look like? We need to talk to our citizens, our residents, and find out more about this. You all have data from Washington 211, which you'll see a little bit of that data incorporated into this presentation. But what you were missing was, people's thoughts and ideas, their voices. And so this project allowed us to hear from the residents, allow us to hear from those who are clientele, from agency providers, from a wide array of people as to what's going on here in Covington. What are they seeing are the needs of the people in this area. So there's a lot in the methodology, but again, I will just kind of briefly go over it. Feel free to ask questions afterwards, but we wanted to hear from people and we decided in the time frame that we have that focus groups would be the way to go. So we did do focus groups with those different populations that I just mentioned. So agency providers or those that have had experience with the city government or human services delivery, as well as people who have received services previously or currently, and then just general residents, which we did at the town hall. So overall, we had 3 focus groups and a town hall. And after that was all done, we got to do the fun part of reading through all the transcripts and looking for themes that emerged from people's voices and what they talked about. So that's what we're focusing on today. There's going to be a lot of really cool quotes that are thrown up there, and I know I'll go through them fast, but you will get a copy of this presentation afterwards, so you can peruse that a little bit more. So what we found when we looked at that data from the focus groups, these 5 main themes and several subthemes. I'm going to go over those each. in turn, but these were the ideas that emerged from what people were talking about. We asked them different questions about, hey, what are the needs? What are the people who are most in need in this area? What are your clients asking for? What are they saying about other people and their needs? So we had a whole list of questions for each group, but we let people also talk a little bit beyond those questions.
So, oh, yeah, there you go. I don't have to use my teacher voice.
Yeah.
So for that first theme there, which was housing insecurity or kind of this general needs, we asked a question to every focus group and to the town hall, and we said, who are the people with the greatest needs, or what's the greatest need you perceive in this community? And by and large, people said housing and shelter. This was huge. Everybody talked about it. It was a big thing. It was usually the first thing to come up. And one of those things more specifically was access to emergency shelter. We had multiple people tell us that, agency providers saying someone will come to me and it's a weekend and they need shelter. And I don't have shelter here in Covington for them. I have to reach out to somebody else, and likely all those spots are already filled up. So emergency shelter was definitely a key thing that came up as a very specific thing that was needed here. Otherwise, town hall residents and focus groups participants mentioned that they would see people in parking lots or people in the streets, and it made them feel uncomfortable. They were also concerned for the safety of those people, and they weren't sure what to do about it. So there was a lot of visually, we're seeing this going on, and also agency providers saying, yes, we know this is an issue. We are seeing this day to day. The other thing too is we had some participants who were formerly incarcerated, so they were system involved. And this is a group that is definitely impacted by housing and shelter. One of our participants said, I came out and all I had was the clothes on my back. And now I have to find a job. I have to get housing. I have to find a way to live. And I have all these barriers. I have to find felon-friendly places to apply to because I have a criminal history. So that group especially is going to be the ones that are going to be most impacted by not having access to temporary and also long-term low-cost income barrier housing. So that was definitely a group that I think is one we need to pay attention to. And reentry can be both from jail as well as prison. So you have different people coming out, sometimes under supervision, sometimes not, but definitely a group to look for. And the other thing that came up with this topic was food insecurity. We had a couple that said, we have some food allergies and it's really hard to make food stamps work for us. We have to supplement them because our dietary restrictions. We also had many participants mention, hey, what about school-aged youth? Many of them are using the free and reduced lunches, but what happens over the summer? What happens on the weekends? So there are different groups that are impacted by food, housing, clothing, employment, kind of these basic needs, but it was a big thing that most of the groups brought up immediately when we talked about it. The second theme here is just awareness of services and the limited awareness of that. Quite frequently when we were talking in the focus groups, we'd have someone say, oh, I know this resource, or oh, I've used this resource. And inevitably somebody else would say, I've never heard of that. That sounds really cool. Like, tell me more about it. Let's talk after this. So it was really interesting to see that communication opening up and the fact that people were learning about these resources just by talking to each other. But generally, we were hearing from people that agencies within Covington are either not able to connect with each other and talk to each other about what they have. They're not able to refer people efficiently or effectively. And instead, a lot of times resources are outside of the city. So they're sending people outside. That means people have to leave their home or leave their ties to the community to go receive resources. And the other thing is just generally people in the community were just not aware of resources. Like I said, just continually going, wow, I didn't know that was a thing. And many people had recommendations for how to ensure that people from different walks of life would be able to access or know about resources, whether it's using social media ads. This was a younger crowd that was talking about this. This was very interesting. But others said, I don't use the internet. So how do you get this information out? Bus stops, using billboards, having printed cards. But then how do you update that information? There's a lot of great ideas and a lot of kind of these ideas of how do we keep this going? How do we make sure things are up to date? Who's going to be doing this? But still, a lot of really interesting recommendations for that. The third thing we had is kind of a bigger, larger thing. And we kind of coined this community identity. There's this concern that participants were saying, hey, Covington is growing, it's getting bigger, but we're seeing a lot of people from different communities, different backgrounds, people who maybe don't speak English, who aren't from here. it's just, we're seeing a lot of people and a lot of different people, and it's growing and it keeps growing. And we don't have the resources for everybody. We don't have the resources that are going to be good fits culturally for everybody. How do we deal with that? And what we are seeing and what we are hearing from people as they're talking is that there's this idea of we don't talk to each other. We don't have this, connectedness anymore because there's a lot of growth. There's a lot of transiency. You're right by the highway, as someone mentioned. You have people coming and going. It makes it difficult to get to know your neighbor and be willing to help out your neighbor. Be willing to say, I'm here for this person. I'm here to help support them. There's a lot of just saying, well, they have problems. This group has problems, but not seeing this group as part of the community of Covington. So this is really more of an identity thing that needs to be something that people consider. It's a kind of a broader thing, but it also, again, falls into communication and does affect these other issues. The fourth thing that came up, and this was kind of like the housing thing, is when we asked, are there specific groups that are in need? Most of the time people said youth and also elderly individuals or older individuals. And for similar reasons, actually, for both groups, there were concerns that there's just nothing to do. There's no way to have a recreation place in Covington, although they're very excited about the upcoming recreation community center. That was definitely a high point. But right now, where can people go for relatively free in the area where they can socialize, maybe do activities, feel safe, they can get to it easily. There's transportation, definitely some concerns about accessibility and mobility issues with elderly adults and getting to like parks and to the grocery store and to, the pool or something like that. So there's definitely concerns with, do we have places for people to go? Do we have access and transportation for people? And with youth and young adults, that was another issue, like pretty similar, but there were concerns that if youth are not able to socialize in a healthy manner in a place where it's not going to cost them a lot, maybe they're going to get into trouble. So both groups were definitely, I think, readily identified across all of those focus groups and town halls as groups that are in need of socialization and recreation activities. And then finally, the last one is kind of this broader role of city government. So what we are seeing and what we're hearing, and this kind of talks to some of the other points, is that there's a lot of resources, and sometimes those resources are here, sometimes people aren't aware of them, but more often than not, things like shelter, mental health care, addiction care are outside the city. So the big ones are not going to be located in the city. People will have to leave to go get those resources. Or there's an issue of, well, we don't know that this agency here in town does provide this. So you're sending people different places. Maybe they're going and then they're finding, nope, this isn't the resource that I wanted, or I can't use this resource because of criteria issues like felon-friendly things. So there was a lot of issues with like coordinating service. And how do we do that when most of our services are outside the city of Covington? But that means then we probably need somebody who's a coordinator, somebody who would span those boundaries of these different siloed agencies, whether they're in Covington or outside. They're the ones who know, hey, if you need both mental health care as well as addiction services, as well as this and that, I know where to send you to and I will help you get there. That is what they need. And that's what a lot of people talked about, is just we need somebody who knows how to navigate that better, because right now we're not communicating with each other. We asked about collaboration and coalitions, and they said, well, yeah, there's, South King County and there's this, but there wasn't anything here in Covington that was like a regular coalition of all the agency providers. So trying to bring people together, trying to bring those agencies together and having a team of those boundary spanners or those coordinators would be really helpful for that. And another kind of final point there is the fact that we need to bridge not only human services, but also the criminal justice side. As I said, we had a participant who was system involved, and it is very clear that people who are coming out of prison and jail are going to need human services resources, and they're the ones who are most vulnerable, and they're probably the ones with the greatest needs, but they're also not getting those needs met. So we need to think about human services as more than just in the city of Covington. It expands beyond that, and it's a broader umbrella. So really what this all speaks to is this was an amazing project to do. We really appreciate collaborating with y'all in the city. This was, I think, a great first step in the right direction. We know that there are some areas that we need to work on, but we can also see that there's a way forward in order to actually start building in assessments and actually looking at this periodically, doing larger assessments, maybe every 3 to 5 years, and finding out where are we, where have we come, have we improved, what do we need to work on, and what's changing. And this is just the first of hopefully a great partnership where we'll continue this research and help to institute a human services assessment that does occur regularly. So thank you. Hopefully I didn't go over time too much.
No,
right.
you were
Good.
great.
Thank you.
Are you able to take questions if council
Of
has any?
course, yeah.
Okay, does council have any questions they'd like to ask? Jennifer?
Did childcare come up in any of your research?
Yeah, so there definitely was childcare concerns. Roger, do you recall if there were, trying to think there are any good quotes or anything that would summarize that? Yeah,
have the quotes.
I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I was curious if it was mentioned. I just
Yeah.
didn't see it captured here, which, I mean, it doesn't mean it wasn't mentioned, but I was kind of curious priority wise, if it's not specifically mentioned in these slides, then is it kind of just lower down the list as far as quantity of comments?
sure. So I do, again, when it came to youth, I think most of it was concerns for like, what are you doing? Are youth taken care of? And I will have to say, I think off the top of my head, I probably didn't hear as much about childcare.
Mhm.
That's not to say it's not important, but with this group, it may not have been something that came to their minds. And we did try to double check with people because sometimes they kind of go down one way and we're like, hey, just double checking. Is there anything else you can think of? So I wouldn't say that's not important. It's probably something we should look into more. And it might have been this group just didn't see that as much of an issue at the moment. Maybe they're not having to deal with childcare issues, so it's not
Right.
present. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And that's a part of our sampling, that, that we did, we really didn't have like, the sampling that would have liked to have seen. We had a short time period to get this done.
Sir,
But,
may I ask if you can go up to the
sorry.
microphone, please, just for the recording?
Sorry about that. The sample of individuals that participated, we had a short time frame to do this study. And so it may have just simply been that given the groups that we had and the turnout at the open forum, that the issue wasn't as addressed as frequently or as regularly
Mhm.
by the participants. But I do believe there was some mentions here and there of that. So.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Sean?
Thank you, Dr. Chodo. I appreciate it. And as a Central grad, I'm grateful and appreciate your work. So I was intrigued by a couple things, lack of awareness of services, and basically the desire for community and places to talk to each other. And I guess if we do go forward with this, the next phase, I'd love to see one, kind of what you just talked about, a larger sampling, and I appreciate the time constraints you had, but two, kind of a literature search of what other communities are doing to create that place where people can talk. I mean, we do things like Purple Lights Nights, we do National Night Out, and but if we can create a culture in Covington where we have those regular events, but also it just then creates, it's okay to talk to other people here in Covington. I'd like to see that going forward. So if there are any thoughts on how to do that now, I'd love to hear that now as opposed to waiting till the next phase. What are other communities doing to address awareness and build that sense of community?
Sure, that did actually come up. Actually, Roger had a great conversation with one of the participants at the town hall who had mentioned that they were going to school in, I think it was Bozeman, somewhere in Montana. Could be one of those two, And they had mentioned a program that was going on. It was a housing, a shelter program. And it did kind of make us all go, well, yeah, why didn't we think to check elsewhere? So I think that is definitely something that can be done to start, researching and looking into what are other cities, towns, especially given the size of Covington. Everyone commented, we're small enough, we should be able to do this, right? We should be able to provide resources, be a community. And I think that is a great kind of interim step, is to start looking into other places. And yeah, that could take a little bit of Googling, but I think that's definitely a great idea. And you can definitely look into academic research on that as well to see if people have been evaluating programs that are specific to community building. And there are some, off the top of my head, they're a little bit outdated, but there are some collective efficacy efforts that have been done and have been researched. Yeah.
I just sent something to Regan the other day. There's a community in Minnesota that does a catwalk where I don't know, seen that
Oh.
they organize a tour of neighborhoods and they just look for cats and they can do it for dogs too, but it's created this sense of community. People look forward to that and they just meet their neighbors. And so I think, and these are not cost prohibitive. I mean, just something saying we're gonna do a catwalk in your neighborhood if you want to be part. So anyway, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Debbie.
Thank you for all of this information. Will we have access to not only the slides, but your raw data, like how many people were included and all of the comments that were voiced?
So we will have a white paper to you, because of trying to make sure everything remains anonymous. We won't have like the full transcripts to you, but we can definitely include some more quotes because there were tons. I had to narrow it down and
Sure.
then I still put tons on there, but I think we can still kind of do an appendix of additional quotes to really emphasize those different themes.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Anybody else? Just want to thank you very much for this. This was very eye-opening. And thank you both, and Julie, and thank you for getting this to us. So, thank you.
Well, thank you for the partnership.
You bet. All right, next, if council could please join me in front of the dais. Across this country, in our county, in our state, and even here in Covington, we have many different cultures. That's what makes America great. Having all the different cultures to help bring us well-rounded. Is that better? Okay. So tonight we have a proclamation, and see if I get this right. Mr. Biwais, did I pronounce that right? Well, I'm going off of this pronunciation here. I would pronounce it, well, never mind. So if you could join me,
Yeah.
And how is the correct pronunciation?
A new pump.
A new pump.
That's right.
Okay. I'm reading, okay. And so if you would like to join us up front here,
Yeah.
I have a proclamation that I'd like to read to you.
And I have.
Okay, perfect. So thank you for being here tonight. So whereas there are an estimated 1.2 billion Hindus worldwide, and approximately 2.5 million Hindu Americans living throughout the United States, representing a variety of ethnic backgrounds, including individuals of Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Malaysian, Indonesian, Afghan, Nepali, Bhutanese, Sri Lankan, Fijian, Caribbean, and European descent. And whereas our Covington Hindu community is a vibrant combination of individuals, families, and organizations working together to preserve, nurture, and promote Hindu culture and traditions locally, as well as contributing economically and socially throughout the city. I agree. Whereas, as a community, have organized and participated in numerous ongoing acts of service, including organizing blood drives, serving over 2,000 meals at homeless shelters, and collecting over 6,000 pounds of food for distribution to those in hunger throughout 2023 and so far in 2024 in Washington State. And whereas Hindu Heritage Month is celebrated every October, and now therefore we, the City Council of the City of Covington, do hereby proclaim October 2024 to be Hindu Heritage Month in the City of Covington, and we encourage our residents to recognize the spirit of service and cultural vibrance our Hindu residents bring to the community. And we'd like to give you this proclamation. Thank you to everybody for all the work and everything you've done for our community. And if there's anything you'd like to say,
Thank you
Okay.
for the recognition.
you bet. All right,
And
I'll let you go ahead. I'll hold it for you if you'd like.
Yeah.
And then you had something you'd like to say?
whatever I get this.
You can do it right here if you'd like.
First of all, it's namaste. We say that with our hands joined and we just bow in front of everyone. We say
Okay.
namaste. That means we respect you and we see you as a bigger individual than us. We respect you in all the shape and forms. So thank you for that.
Use that. That will be audible to everyone.
Oh, there's a mic here.
Yeah, we're picking
Yeah,
up
there's a
right here.
mic. So on behalf of Hindu American community, we accept and thank you, Mayor Jeff, city councilors and city staff for processing and awarding this proclamation of Hindu American Heritage Awareness and Appreciation Month during this prestigious and festive season of Navratri and Diwali, which is a symbol of victory of good over evil. So thank you for that. This proclamation sends an impactful and meaningful message to the Hindu American community in Covington and neighboring cities like Maple Valley, Kent, Auburn, Renton, and helps educate all Americans about our incredible traditions and values. Some more I have.
That's fine.
Over the last 3-4 years, there has been significant growth of Hindu Americans in the city of Covington, and I'm sure you must have witnessed that. And we have been contributing to all the aspects of public life to our vibrant and diverse culture. This proclamation brings the residents immense pride and gratitude to know that the city recognizes the contributions of Hindu Americans here. And we have, as you said, we did the contributions, we gave back to community, and I have some friends here. If they have some time, they would like to share. But we have many communities here like HSS, Seva, Kent Hindu Temple, Hindu Sanatana Dharma Temple. We have a lot of these organizations and places that give back to community in many forms. And also we have the yoga sections. We have the organization that provide yoga to all ages for free. I'm sure many of you heard about yoga. It's a very thing that we hear a lot, and a lot of organizations charge money for that. But we provide those seva, those services as free to anyone who want to join. Yes, please contact, and then we will provide the contact information. That's something. Yeah. And last but not the least, thank you again for proclamation, and we look forward to continued engagement with City Council on various community service initiatives. Thank you.
And it's namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Great, thank you.
And then last but not the least, one thing I want to say, it's not something I've heard, but I have noticed a lot that you must have seen, folks, Hindu walking in stores like Costco or Fred Meyer or any of the store with either a red dot or a vertical bar. I just want to say that that's just it's called as tilak, and we wear that, we do that because it's part of the tradition. So if you see anyone walking in the stores, and if that person is not in any trouble, that means he's Hindu. He's not been shot. Because I have seen that people, is he okay? It looks like a big red dot. So if that person is walking fine and he seems fine or she seems fine, it means he's just Hindu wearing the tilak on his forehead. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Namaste.
Let me get another picture here. Can you
Yeah.
scooch together a little bit? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Great, thank you. And thank you again for bringing this to us. Okay,
Thank you. Thank you for having.
have a
us.
great evening.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again all for being here for this tonight. So next is our first of two public comment periods. So if anybody would like to share, speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to city council, not the audience or staff. Comments are to be related to city business. Thank you, Joe. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. For attendees participating by Zoom, click the raise hand button. For attendees participating by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. Once the city grants permission to speak, press unmute in Zoom or dial *6 to unmute by phone. Notice campaigning for any ballot measure or candidate at City Hall or during city council meetings, including public comment, is prohibited by state law, RCW 42.17a.555. With that, I have Taryn Doss. Would you like to address council? You can come up here. Just state your name and whether you're a resident of Covington or not.
Yeah, hi, this is Tarun Das. Actually, most of the things was told by my friend Anupam. So I mean, I have nothing much to add, but apart from it, apart from we, as a part of entire Hindu community, we are really thankful for processing this proclamation. This means a lot to our community. For the simple reason being, we are quite a sizable community here now, including Covington, Maple Valley, Auburn, and the efforts which has been put by the other organizations which are part of Hindu culture, which is a Hindu Swam Sevak Sangh, and the yoga activities. And so as a part of some few activities, I would like to mention, we did a Surya Namaskar yoga program to the elementary school in Auburn, and it was received very well by the students and the principal. It's a simple reason. So basically, yoga, as we all know, it's basically an merging of the lower self to the higher self. So so this Surya Namaskar program, it's not religious. It simply means that your body attracts more of awareness to your heart, and once the person has that awareness, he or she gets more successful in his or her career, in whatever he wants to achieve. He wants to achieve social in literature, in science, in philosophy, whatever he or she wants to do, he can be a more better. So that's the one of the activity which was done. And also, as Anupamji mentioned about the Seva Diwali drive, which wherein we submitted around tons of food just to give back to the society, wherein we were a part of this great American society. So we wanted to give something back to the American, I think we donated to Ishakwa, Kent, and Sammamish, and also I think we didn't do for Covington, but yeah, but we I mean, maybe this year we'll try to do that as well. So that is what I wanted to say, and I really thank you from all of the Hindu community for giving this awarding this proclamation. That means a lots to our people. Thank you so much.
And thank you very much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Shashi Prashar, did I pronounce that correctly? Thank you for being here tonight.
Mayor Jeff, council members, officers, and attendees, good evening. I'm Shashi Prashar, born in north part of India, lived 20 years in Dubai. Last 12 years, I'm here in US. I live in Auburn, but my field of operation is all surrounding cities, including Seattle. Wherever I'm needed, I go. Now my time is to give back to society. I'm 67 years, and the best thing I can give is the preventive care of health. And how we can do preventive care of health, how we can live wonderful life without medicines. So yoga is a wonderful tool which I have used in my life. I'm the chairman of Friends of Yoga Trust, registered 35 years back in Dubai. Now we are in more than 20 countries, and I'll be available for training yoga teachers. We have a residential arrangement there in India for 1 month teacher training course. Even here also I can give crash courses of a week or two, because to take care of health or yoga is not a rocket science. It's so easy. We need to understand our body, our mind, and our soul. That's it. And yoga is a perfect science which make us understand our body, our mind, our intellect, everything. So all those are widely covered and very scientifically explained. Is 2 and 2, 4, is science, is a human science. So it's very much misunderstood and underutilized. We only think one part of yoga, physical part, whereas there are 8 parts: yam, niyam, asana. Asana is the physical posture. Then pranayam, breathing practices. I can definitely even prove here itself that all of us, most of us are not breathing rightly. Breath is a wonderful science which we were naturally given when we were born. But over a period of time, with a wrong lifestyle, we have changed our pattern of breathing. When we inhale, our belly should come up. When we exhale, belly should go in. But you can see yourself, must be reversed with 80% of the cases. So by practice, we can correct our breathing pattern, which is the cause of most of the diseases. Because food is important, breath is even more important. So we have to understand the correct practice, correct pattern of breathing. So I have so many things to share and say. I'll be available to Covington Society for service without any financial obligation. And I feel so privileged and blessed to interact with all of you today and to breathe in and breathe out from the common atmosphere. Thank you so much for giving us time. And we are so grateful for recognizing our initiative and making this month a month for celebration as Hindus do in India. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience wishing to address council this evening? I think they do.
Yeah.
He's been perfect.
Yeah.
Is there anybody online that would like to address council this evening? Seeing nobody else raise their hand or approach the podium, we'll close this public comment period and we will have a second opportunity towards the end of our meeting. Next up is approval of the consent agenda consisting of items C1 through C6. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Consent agenda has been approved. Next up is new business item number 1. Discuss the potential partnership with Valley Medical Center for Whole Health Community Center. Regan.
I think Sean just clued in on that too. He just gave part of my presentation about that preventative care. So it's beautiful. And I do a little yoga, actually. It may surprise you. But, and I was over here practicing that breathing as he was talking. So helpful. I want to thank Kaylin for being here with Valley, and excited to share this with you, council. We've discussed this a little bit, and I've shared a little bit of information on this about a whole health community center. So I'll kind of go through kind of where we're at. As you know, we've done an aquatic recreation center feasibility study. And what we learned is that there's a lot of needs in our community that people need in an aquatic and what a community center could provide. So with that, now that that's been done, we thought of this innovative approach towards the end of last year. And that is to create a whole health community center model that really features traditional community center kind of service vibes around healthcare services. And Valley Medical has been a long trusted healthcare provider in the Covington community and beyond. And this integrated approach would bridge what we're doing as a city in creating a community center and with what Valley's doing in creating their health services into this whole health community model. So what are some of the needs? These are numbers from Valley Medical. Just in Covington, you can see primary visits in a year, just over 33,000, specialty care, just over 32,000, and expected ER visits, 7,600. Preventable diseases, that's really what this whole health community center is about. And so we've listed some numbers there in the Valley network that are occurring right now that with the kind of services that this community center could provide, could help prevent these. And you can see it's astronomical: type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, high cholesterol, obesity, high blood pressure. These are things that this type of center could reduce and have advantageous effects over. So what's the Covington market? What kind of market would this be in? And this corresponds with Valley's catch area as well. So within a 10-minute drive of this community center is 112,000 population. That's almost 12,500 seniors over 65, and that's over 37,000 households. So you can see that there is a need and there's an impact here. And just to throw that out there as well, there's nothing like this anywhere in the Western United States, actually. So it's pretty exciting. So one of the advantages with working with Valley is the fact that we own property right next to each other, right in our town center, which is a great spot. And merging those properties together to create this center just makes a lot of sense and a great intersection there. Some of the overall benefits, creating a community hub, that regional center where people can come to, complementary growth between the city of Covington's growth and Valley Medical's growth. The regional impact. This could really be that X factor that Covington's looked for when we talk about, and going to one of our goals, which is on the bottom here as well, focusing on people's health and how we can truly be better, not just at traditional healthcare, but at preventative healthcare as well. Enhancing community well-being, strengthening the local economy, and then of course it aligns with one of the council goals, which is a commitment to health and safety. So what are the next steps in this process? As you know, the city of Covington has done a feasibility study. The council's selected some options. We had a whole community involvement there and done some preliminary design. Next step would be a master plan for that site and what that would look like. But before we get there, the question before the council tonight is, do we pursue a partnership with Valley Medical on this whole health community center concept? If both organizations authorize us moving forward, then the next step would be to form a technical advisory committee with staff from both Valley and the city of Covington. This has been presented recently to the Valley Medical Board of Directors, and they have authorized us to move forward as well. So it's before you, council, tonight to deliberate and make that decision as well. Happy to answer any questions. I think Kaylin, putting him on the spot, would probably be happy to answer anything as far as Valley centric.
Does council have any questions tonight? Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Regan. Appreciate this. What would a whole health community center actually look like and do? And how is that different than our town center? I mean, since there's not any in the West, I've never had any experience with this. What is it?
So a lot of what we have in the United States, we don't have, it's not an access to exercise equipment problem. We've got more access than we've ever had in history. It's knowing how to use that to benefit your health. And so how this is different than a traditional community center where you'd go in and do whatever you want in that community center. This is a much more intentional approach to health, and it wraps in medical services. So you might, Sean, go and see your doctor at this whole health community center, and he or she may think, a little exercise routine might be good for Sean, and they prescribe that. And they'll go out and sign you up for it at the front desk of the community center. And the equipment that is used in these centers is really cool because you would enter your account information and it would bring up your prescription, your plan that you need to do and help you get those optimal heart rates and everything that you need to accomplish that. And then you might have physical therapy right there and you'll walk out into the center and do that. All chiropractor, any kind of health service, not any kind of health service, but those kind of health services that would be unique to fit into this kind of system is what you'd get. So I don't know if you remember several months ago, I sent out some pictures of the one that Kaylin and Josh and I visited in Indianapolis. And you could see that when you walk in, it just looks like a nice community center, but there's your doctor's offices there and all those other services that work together.
Sounds great. Would there be things like educational opportunities for people to take classes to learn, maybe nutrition or something like that? I'm just wondering how comprehensive is that? And would there be a cost, I guess, to access that too?
Yeah, so classes would probably be something on the programming side that, once we have the facility that we'd get into, but definitely classes, right? All kinds of different classes could be taught at these things. And it would just be like, the same as if we did a community center on our own as a city, there would be a cost. Residents would cost, for a monthly or however, cost less than non-residents. But one of the things we saw that was pretty neat, that Hancock Health, who's doing this in Indianapolis, was able to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin, but through different revenues through this program, their health system grew exponentially when they started this model. And so through excess revenues, they were able to help pay for people that are unable to pay to use the systems to cover that, because a lot of insurances won't cover this type of prescription, unfortunately. So that was a neat benefit of it. But yes, there would be a cost to use it.
Anybody else? Debbie?
Would you foresee having a mental health services component of this, or is it more just physical health?
Well, I hate to separate the two, actually, because the physical health contributes to better mental health.
Sure.
But I don't know. Again, that would be a programming issue. I don't know that we've gotten that far down the road to determine that.
All right, thank you.
Caitlin, any? Yeah.
Okay. So I had meetings with Janine, the CEO of Valley, and you were in some of the meetings too. And the vision that Valley has for our community. So imagine, we've talked about, we've seen what our community center with the pool and everything looks like. Just imagine it being on steroids. Probably the wrong word to use, but just
Talking about health.
we're talking about health, but just imagine partnering with Valley on this to help bring this unique opportunity to South King County. Having it here in Covington and Valley Medical having that building, and then they have that land where they're envisioning building more, bring even more healthcare here into Covington. In all where their current building is, bringing more services to that building and the one that's across the street. And just turning this into a big culture. Now, the numbers that were shared, these are numbers from Valley. It doesn't include the numbers that Multicare is treating here in Covington. So I would imagine this being at least doubled of what needs to be. And this facility can really help not only the residents in Covington, but all of those around us. And what that 10-mile radius that you showed,
10-minute drive.
10-minute drive. Well, that's only 2 miles, but I imagine it going farther than that. It would just the forethought of Kaylin, Josh Lyons, Regan, and going out to see this, and whoever else was in participating to bring this great opportunity to Covington. I am all for this. I think it'd be awesome. Beth.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a logistical question. In specifics, the financial part of it. Like I get it, like I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but I'm trying to figure out how it's going to augment. It really won't be part and parcel helping to pay for a new aquatics or recreation community center. It's its own thing, but it will be right. So when
Trying to
you're getting
convince
these
Valley
numbers
to
of
pay
like
for
the
the community
fiscal.
center.
No, I understand. Well, I mean, I guess I kind of thought we were going into it, whereas if we had other nonprofits helping, they would be kind of in the same property, and it's fine if it's not, but the $98 million fiscal impact really doesn't have anything to do with Valley at all, because they build it, and as I'm understanding it, right? It's just that they would provide services that might be able to ponytail.
There's
or
going to be
piggyback on the other.
some overlap, right? Between
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we're what we would construct and what they would. So I would suspect there'd be some kind of cost savings. We haven't included anything like that because that's something we'd have to study out and still look at. It's not gonna cost the city anything more, right, than what it
Correct,
would have
correct.
cost us,
Right,
but I
right.
think there would be some cost savings.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that that fiscal impact, like they aren't being muddled because it's its own thing, but,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yep.
Yeah, the UW paid for it, that'd be fine. Is there any other questions? Okay, council, before us is the opportunity to authorize the city manager to form a technical advisory group with Valley Medical to develop a partnership to advance the concept of a whole health community center. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
By everybody.
Joe, would you like to speak to your motion?
38,370. 14,281. The first number is the amount of people in the Valley Medical Network in the last 10 years who have been diagnosed as type 2 or pre-type 2 diabetic. The second number are the people who have been diagnosed as general or morbidly obese. As a person who has family members in the type 2 and the morbidly obese categories, and would love to see that change. I would love for this in our community because diabetes is a terrible thing to have to deal with. Having to see my mom weigh out her food, having to see her measure out insulin, having to see her struggle with paying for insulin, finding ways to ensure that others in this community do not need to do that, ensuring that people have access to healthcare that's going to be effective and not just let's go pay a gym fee and see if what we can do on our own, but people who can be there with their doctors and ensure that they're getting the care that they need. I think this is a brilliant idea, and I hope that this is the most effective way we can do this to help the people, not only in Covington, but our surrounding area as well, because I feel that people from Renton, Auburn, Kent will join in this area. And that number of 38,000 goes down to more likely 10,000 because as much as we want to eradicate it, I don't think we're going to officially eradicate it ever. But if we can keep that number as low as possible, it will make things so much better for everybody in this country as a whole.
Thank you, Joe. Deb, would you like to speak to your second?
Thank you. I think this is a win-win for both. Certainly for our community, we're looking at, things that we talked about earlier. How do we bring in more jobs? There's one right there. What do we offer for our senior population? These are almost every one of these categories seniors fit into. And so I think we can meet a couple of our aside goals with this, but it would be great to have this as one of the things we're known for is, a fit city. And we do care about our health and safety of our residents. So it's a great fit.
Thank you, Debbie. Is there anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Beth?
I'm just going to pitch in that I think part of that and with a family member that moved up here from Atlanta where elder healthcare, geriatric care was abundant. Up here, it's not so much. It's very challenging to find people to help with things like Alzheimer's and dementia and very specific. And that's all, wrapped up into a healthy community and how we can help those that are aging because that disease, Alzheimer's, is becoming increasingly more prevalent. And I think there's opportunities to provide programming that would also dovetail on. And again, to Councilmember Hartsock's point and what we brought up earlier, there isn't a lot for the elderly. And so maybe having an opportunity to bridge that gap between care and mental well-being is important too.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Christina?
Regardless of age, functional medicine has to be our future, or else there is no future. So to know that the opportunity to pioneer something like this is absolutely revolutionary to me. The functional medicine awareness, both just across the country among those who are aware, is growing so rapidly, all ages. I would even say more so on the younger side because they have access to this knowledge. But I'm floored that this would come to Covington, and I wholeheartedly support it.
Great, thanks, Christina. Anybody else? It's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to form a technical advisory group with Valley Medical to develop a partnership to advance the concept of a whole health community center. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Yep. No, I appreciate you. This is great. All right, next up is new business item number 2, discuss the proposed 2025 legislative priorities and policies. Regan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. It's that time of year again where we get to set our legislative agenda for the next year's legislative session. So working with our lobbyists and leadership team, we've put together these 2 documents, our priorities and policy document, with some items that we think are, 1, high priority that we need to focus on, and 2, that there might be a chance that we could be able to do something there. So first one is State Route 516. Really excited that it's done. And I think, was it Jennifer saying now people are asking, when are we doing the next phase already?
Yep.
I guess the memory of the bad traffic goes away quickly. So yeah, so this is a 1.75 miles from the end of our project that just completed to the east city limits. And it's a $40.1 million request. And there is talk of a transportation package. And so if there is, this will be something we will hit very, very hard to have included in that transportation package. And jump in anytime you want if you have any questions. Next under transportation is widening and safety improvements on State Route 18. Again, we're kind of playing defense on this. As you know, we secured $640 million to widen Highway 18. That now has been put into phases. So this would be phase 1 of that project. The one issue that we may need to really focus on is the Climate Commitment Act. And if that's repealed in November, now none of the dollars that we secured is from the Climate Commitment Act. But if that's repealed, what could happen is lawmakers may start looking for pots of money that haven't been allocated or used yet. And so we have already been with CLTC setting up appointments with legislators on both the Senate and House Transportation Committees to just make sure, because we're going to have several new legislators this next session, to make sure they know that this project is viable, this project is happening, it's already been funded, let's keep it there. WSDOT's ready to move on it, we've got a timeline. So that will really be a lot of our efforts this session as well. And then on to maintenance and preservation, and really kind of asking the legislature to create a reliable and continuous transportation funding source, mostly for maintaining and preserving local infrastructure. We just don't have that. And so working with the legislature to help create options for that for local jurisdictions is very important to maintain the infrastructure that we do have. Any questions on transportation items there? Yeah.
Just a quick one. Can you confirm that Maple Valley is still not necessarily joining in the efforts to seek funding for 516 widening?
I can't confirm that,
Okay.
unfortunately.
While they haven't said they're not going to do it, their main focus is 169.
Yeah.
Because that's.
I just hope
That's
that
a
it will
very-
change, especially with all the chatter
Well,
about our
it
new
will.
wide road.
Once we push the gridlock further east, they'll start filling it
Well,
more.
so what I've been doing is I've been coining a great phrase that was given to us by one of our council members. Because right now it's known as the Covington Crawl.
Yeah.
It will become the Maple Valley Molasses.
Yes.
And that has gone over very well. So thank
I
you.
bet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use that tomorrow night with Sean at Pick.
Good.
There you go. Yeah.
Is it possible, I know that our boundary ends at like 212.
Yep.
And it's just reach to get to that turn lane up there by 216 that would at least get people to Black Diamond. Like, is there any? I mean, we haven't gotten that far in planning, but gosh, if we could do another quarter mile, at least to get another turn lane. I know we're not going to be able to go all the way out to Maple Valley.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a.
That would have to be Maple Valley seeking
or
that
Black
funding.
Diamond.
We would need to partner with Maple Valley on that. Obviously, it's a state route. A quarter mile doesn't seem like a lot.
I know.
Expense wise, that's another $10-15 million to add onto this project, which is crazy, right? But that's the reality of it.
Well, anyway.
So it's not a bad idea. If Maple Valley would be willing to make that a priority, then great.
Tacking onto the Highway 18, like I know that's a project that we really want to see at some point complete. If it looks like it's going to be years down the road, is there an opportunity to, if we can't? 'Cause one of the problems is the structure of it. The other problem is behavior. Driver behavior is atrocious on that road. Is there a way that we can at least vie for maybe some additional, oh, that's silly, troopers or something to have law enforcement to enforce safe, like lower the speed limit?
Yeah.
I don't know what, I mean, we've got to do something to make that road safe, and if it's not gonna get built out for another 5 or 10 years, something needs to be done because it was just.
We've talked a lot about that with WashDOT actually in several different meetings. Namely, what we've requested is that they put temporary barricades between the lanes until it is done. And what did they tell us? That's another like $7 million just to do that. And so they just said no. So it's a really, really difficult one. You need to be really careful driving that route right now. So the information we've received from WashDOT is at this point, they're not willing to do any safety improvements that would cut into the budget of the project. Temporary safety improvements, I should say.
And going on that, just to reemphasize, for other projects they're running out of funds. So they're looking where they can pull. So if we want to try to make any change to what's planned already, they'll just pull all the funding.
And it would need legislative approval to make any changes to it, which, kind of opens Pandora's box as far as.
But we still need another $1 billion, like on top of the 6.
For phase 2,
Phase 2, so I mean, like, I just don't see that. Maybe I'm just being a Debbie Downer, but I think I'm being pragmatic that it would be a very long time for them to prove that.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Just a quick, do we think that WaSDOT is just making up numbers as they go so they can tell us no? Because I really believe WaSDOT's favorite word is no.
Well, when I first met with WashDOT 5 years ago about this project and asked them how much money do we need to lobby for so you can build this, it was 250 million. And now it's 1.5 billion. So yeah, they might be, Joe. I mean, that's a huge inflation over 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, and
It's crazy.
Finding
Culverts.
out of nowhere, another culvert pops up, which has to be made into a bridge.
Yeah.
So, okay. Back to you, Regan.
Great.
To build bridges.
So on to public safety, this is just asking the legislature for additional investment and funding tools for local jurisdictions to help fund public safety. As is no secret, those costs have just gone up incredibly a lot and are really difficult they're outpacing revenues that we're bringing in. And so the legislature has created options for mental health, for housing. So we're asking them to do it for transportation and public safety as well. So hopefully we'll get some movement there this session.
And this would also, since it's saying additional funding tools, this is also helping for like when Kent and Auburn are asking for Councilmatic to be able to increase the sales tax for that reason. Would that work for us since we're King County contract?
We kept this pretty kind of a blanket statement as opposed to specific because when I met with Kent just 2 weeks ago, they were unsure that they were going to pursue that. If they are, then that will be our targeted focus, that we'll join partnership with them. If not, it'll ask the legislature to come up with ideas, but that's definitely on the table.
Thank you.
Yep. Great. So our one and only capital funding request is an additional 867,000 alongside approval of 2.1 million from the Washington Wildlife Recreation Program grant in the 2025 capital budget for Jenkins Creek Trail. As you know, we have secured some funding for this project, and you've seen some preliminary designs and the study that's happened, but we just need additional funding to make this a reality. So we will have this, the plan is to put this on the agenda again. We anticipate capital requests, anything over $1 million, they will not fund this next session. So we kept it at that 867,000, working with Ethan on what phase can we do for under $1 million. And so that's why you see that, that request there. And then hoping that they fully fund the grant program, so we could seek that additional 2.1 million through the grant program. Any questions on that one? So that is what is being proposed to you for our legislative priorities for next session. So now I'll quickly go through the policy document. A lot of this is some of the same material that you've seen last year and the year prior. There are some additional items though. On state shared revenues, it's asking the state to preserve and enhance state shared revenues because that has shrunk over the last several years. Again, our property tax, lifting the 1% annual growth limit, the 1% cap is on there. Affordable housing, we had this last year as well to work through and hopefully work with, bring some clarity to affordable housing and land use bills that the state usurps local land use. We're not supposed to use that word in Olympia, but I'll use it here. And then basic infrastructure funding, that's funding to expand the Public Works Assistance Account, which you're familiar with, and then expand state funding opportunities to assist with maintenance and operations of local infrastructure. You'll see that as an emphasis because there's just not money out there locally to do these type projects. So there's the availability of the funding, I should say, just not the tools for local jurisdictions to access that. And then insurance costs. This is a major issue around the state. Liability rates in the city of Covington have increased by 50%. From 2022 to 23, they increased by 50%. And then 23 to 24, an additional 61%. So it's crazy and to see those types of numbers. So we'll be joining AWC and WCIA in requesting the legislature protect against liability expansion. And I know there's other cities working on this as well, and AWC's clued in also. And then community input on local policy, one we've had for a while, unfunded mandates, that's a carryover as well. And then civil asset forfeiture. This is one that is kind of, we're floating it out there this year that will really help and enhance our police officers' ability to combat retail theft. I presume we won't see much on this session, but over the next couple of years, as we gain partners, I think we will. And then law enforcement retention, and then juvenile rights. RCW 1340-740 essentially prohibited police officers from talking to juveniles without the presence of an attorney. So this would roll some of those back and help us have greater public safety. As you know, once this law was passed, many of the crimes, especially the major crimes in our city and others, started being committed by juveniles. And that was, I believe, a direct result of this law because our police officers couldn't detain them, couldn't question them. And so it makes it very difficult for our public safety to do their jobs. So this is in an effort to roll back some of those, allowing our police officers to question a minor without an attorney present. So that's all on our policy document. Happy to take any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Sean?
Thank you, Regan. Appreciate the kind of strategic thinking that's going on with the policy. I look at the legislative stuff is more tactical. We're focused on specific things, but then also monitoring larger trends to see how we can help shape the legislature's thinking about that. Going into the civil asset forfeiture, I really think that's an important, trying to think creatively how to deter retail theft. I think continuing to do our partnerships with our major retailers in the city and working on additional, so punishing the retail theft, but also trying to find ways to make sure that retailers are not creating an environment that attracts theft.
Yep.
I know that's been a problem too, is we don't always get the retailers pressing charges. So I don't know what the answer is there, but I encourage us to continue to bring that issue up with our legislature too, that it creates kind of creates a magnet saying you're not going to get charged here. So, and then I see, and maybe I was mistaken in the past, but didn't we have public info request reform on previous policies? And if not, is that something we're looking at too? So how to address some of the I don't know, it's not the right word, but just the flood of public information requests and the burden it puts on staff and our resources.
Yeah, we kind of took the lead on that a few years ago during a legislative session. A couple of other cities joined in, and legislators, it was just a hard no. As you know, they are not subject to the same public records request laws that we are. In fact, they're not subject to them at all. So it's just not a big deal for them. And the newspapers really lobbied to not make any changes. But it needs to happen. We give advantages to a bad actor to really cripple a city or any kind of public entity through their public records requests. And something does need to change, but you're right, that was on our policy. I think it was actually one of our priorities a few years ago, but we've removed it since then.
Jennifer.
One question and one suggestion. What is going on with the civil asset forfeiture now that it would need improvements? I feel like I'm missing something that's going on that we're trying to rectify.
You want to talk about that, Adam?
Yeah, so one of the issues we're running into is the burden is different. So for instance, in a drug case, the burden is preponderance of the evidence. For anything other than a drug case, it's a conviction. So the issue is you can request a hearing within 90 days, and if you have not been convicted, we return everything to you. So any good lawyer is going to say in 90 days, we're going to have a hearing, and so we can't ever seize anything for any reason. That's not
Even
drug
stuff
related.
that's stolen.
What was it? No,
Even-
well, if it's stolen, yeah, we can return to the
Okay.
owner, but this is for people who have profited off of it. So for instance, if you're fencing stolen property, you're profiting off of that. We would then seize your assets to
Gotcha.
then kind of prevent the draw to commit the crime to begin with. So typically used against like marijuana growers, not a huge crime, but you would then seize assets, which would then prevent them from doing it again, because the whole point is to make large amounts of money. And if we can remove that draw, it'd be fantastic.
Okay.
That answers the
Understood.
question.
Yes, thank you. And then a suggestion, I was curious, especially talking about like overall more of a broad swipe, given that behavioral health is pretty much the fundamental issue that leads to many of the issues that, we see here that we're trying to attack legislatively. Also, a root cause of most of what we heard earlier. I'm wondering if on this, these second things that we support, if we could add something about the city supporting measures that support initiatives, specifically funding of behavioral health. I think of those King County Crisis Centers, great idea, but who is going to staff them? I mean, these organizations that do this work are struggling. And so legislatively, the state needs to step up and pay for this stuff, whether it's, through Medicare or other incentives for, people to get their education paid for. There's ways to make behavioral health more accessible. And so putting something in here that shows at least, that our city has a commitment to literally the biggest issue there is.
So in AWC's legislative priorities, they have 5 priorities. One of them is behavioral health treatment capacity, and almost verbatim what you just said, actually.
Okay.
So we do have a statement on our priority document that we support
everything
AWC's.
from
Yeah.
AWC.
So we have that. If council wants something more specific, a standalone item, we could add that.
I personally would really appreciate calling it out, given the need.
Does council wish to add that to as a legislative priority?
Yeah.
Through consensus for that? Yeah.
As the second.
As the
yeah.
second thing, on the policy document.
Yeah. Policy, not priority.
Yeah. It was on, there's consensus for that, Regan.
Yeah,
It'll probably read somewhat similar, and I can show you this afterwards of what
That'd be great.
AWC has, so.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, any other questions for Regan? All right, thank you, Regan.
You
Next.
bet. And so we'll bring these back to the next council meeting for approval.
Great, thank you. And then we'll start scheduling appointments.
Yeah.
Next up is new business item number 3, the 2025 operating and capital budget presentation.
Okay.
City manager budget message.
Papers
Sorry.
around here. Where is that budget? There it is. Well, this is an exciting time of year. We all love budget season, right? It's great.
Yes.
Casey's all giddy and happy during it, so that's fun. No, this is, I believe our process that we have here in the city of Covington that we've developed over the last several years. And the collaboration with staff and council is really quite exceptional. And I've said this before, but budgeting in other organizations is somewhat of a fight for resources. And we just don't experience that here with our staff and directors. It's really what's best for the whole is best for all of us. And so that's a really wonderful system to work in and to develop a budget in. So let's get into it. So this year, our focus is on developing a lean budget that prioritizes essential services while maintaining a conservative approach to our revenue projections. Our goal is to ensure financial stability of the city while continuing to serve our community effectively. We've been cautious, as I've mentioned in the past, in our revenue forecasts, considering potential fluctuations and uncertainties in the upcoming economy. A major hurdle we are currently facing is the rising costs driven by inflation. And as I've said to several of you, this year is when it's really hit us. And so we're going to feel it. And that significantly impacted our budgets and our overall financial planning. So during the upcoming budget workshop, we'll be considering potential budget reductions to ensure financial sustainability. As we did a few years ago, I think it was during COVID, we're putting together a list of options that the council can deliberate on and consider to make up what that deficit. And we're going to be okay. We're going to get this. We've got some great options that we put together for council to consider. And so we'll move forward in that sense, and excited for our budget workshop to get more into that. So on to our long-term outlook. You can see that table there that shows the current council priority reserve account balances. And these have been a wonderful blessing in the city. When we first established these, maybe 7 years ago or so, they have helped us do a lot, where we put in excess revenue proportionally into these different reserve accounts. You can see that some of those, the council priority reserve accounts, are going down. We've been using them, and that's okay. That's what they're there for. But the hope is that we can eventually continue to build those up again. So the general fund is deficit spending and has seen increased costs across all categories. The main contributors is the increase in our King County Sheriff's contract, which has increased $1.75 million since 2021. Salaries and benefits have also seen increases across all funds, due in part to the implementation of the salary survey that we conducted last year, and that brought our city salaries in alignment with comparable cities. With the passage of the Transportation Benefit District sales tax of 0.2%, the street fund has a surplus of revenues over expenditures, but to continue contributing to the overlay fund will still require a subsidy. You'll see in the budget, we put in $400,000 this year for that. One of the potential cuts is to reduce that by some, which just extends out that pavement preservation. But we could talk about a little bit more about that later. On to the budget process. During budget development, directors were instructed to increase their base budgets by no more than 2%, trying to keep that low and below what CPI, and submit decision cards that were council directed, demonstrated a link to the city goals or strategic plan, where health and safety are related, or that were legally mandated. The strategies we put together for this budget are those three there that say 2025 budget strategies, which are to stabilize and support our core services, increase public safety investment due to rising contract costs, and fund infrastructure improvements. So you'll see it's a pretty lean budget as we start getting into it. So now I'll do a quick overview of each of our funds. First is the general fund. So for the general fund, we're forecasting a 4.2% decrease in revenues over 2024. And you can see many of our revenues, if you look at those bullet points, are forecasted to decrease in 2025 over what we had in 2024. I do want to point out the business and occupation tax collections, though. As we talked about when council was considering this, we were projecting about just over $1 million in collections from B&O, but we've only budgeted $700,000 next year to be extremely conservative in those projections, namely because it's our first year. We don't know who's all going to pay, how many people we're going to have to reach out to and audit and all that kind of stuff. So there's going to be a lot of work to really identify what our true collections are for B&O. So for that reason, we budgeted that pretty low at $700,000. Our general fund base budget expenditures are at 7.2% or $1.3 million higher than estimated actuals in 2024. A large part of that is our police contract had another 6.9% increase, court increased by 13%, our prosecution services increased by 35%, public defense by over 50%, and the jail by 7.3%. It also includes in the base budget a 3.6% COLA that's tied to CPI. For 2025, I'm recommending 7 decision cards totaling $745,000. $608,000 of that are one-time costs and $136,000 are ongoing. If you turn to the next page, it has the description of which decision cards I approved. It shows the pool liner replacement. After publishing this, in fact, just yesterday, Ethan and I spoke, and we believe we can push this off a year. And there are some grants that would be available for this type of work that we'll work on in 2025, securing some grants that could help pay for this pool liner replacement that would happen in 2026. Any questions on general fund? Yeah, Joe?
So if we're going to move the pool liner replacement, does that mean we're just going to take $282,000 off of that 608?
It sounds really nice to do that, but the revenue for that was just coming out of the reserve fund anyway. Okay. So it's separate from what we need to cut.
Okay.
Yeah. Wishful thinking though, Joe. I was with you.
I was trying. We got to find 750,000 to.
Yeah. So on the street fund, Transportation Benefit District sales tax is estimated to generate $1.96 million in 2025. The remaining major revenues are forecasted to remain flat in the street fund. So I'm recommending only one decision card with a cost of $45,000, and that's just one-time cost, and that's for a pavement condition assessment. In development services, staff is forecasting an 81.2% increase in revenues. As you know, that's tied to development, so that fluctuates considerably from year to year. These estimates are based on plats with lots that are ready to build, commercial projects that are in the process, and conservative averages on other permit types. The Development Services Fund currently charges a permit fee based on an anticipated number of staff hours to complete that permit. Presently, projects are requiring additional hours to process, which means in order to recoup those additional costs, we will be transitioning to a full pass-through of engineering and construction expenses. So you'll see that coming to you that in our fee resolution, I think somewhat soon. Yeah, in December, that will bring those costs exactly in line. So it'll be all pass-through costs. There won't be projections on the front end of what we anticipate those costs are going to be, because we're seeing that we're running a little bit behind in that. So this will be full 100% pass-through costs that we'll bring to council soon. There are no decision cards recommended in the Development Services Fund. So on to SWIM, the Surface Water Management Fund. Revenues are showing a decrease of 3.6% over 2024. And I'm recommending one decision card totaling $139,000. $125,000 of that are one-time costs and $14,000 ongoing. And that's for the SWIM camera van. It's in the past, we've rented equipment, we own equipment, it's been broken into, the car that we store it in. This is a van that's almost like a safe. It's fully secured and you can't break in and steal the camera and whatnot. So that's what this is. There is a potential that we may remove this item as well before the budget workshop. There might be some opportunities for grants in the coming year for this. So we'll get back to you on that. And in the equipment replacement fund, I'm recommending one decision card that would be approved in the camera van that's above. And it would be contributing user charges to the equipment replacement fund each year to help pay that off over time. So in summary, and as we've discussed, the primary goal of our budget is to really achieve financial sustainability in the city of Covington and ensure that we're responsibly managing the resources that we're provided with. So with that, I just want to thank, like I did at the beginning, our entire staff and especially our directors. As you know, I'm preaching to the choir. They are exceptional and they just do a wonderful job in this process. I want to thank finance for the incredible work that they do. And then lastly, council. We put this together. Now it's up to you to work on it, massage it, and then deliberate and approve. So over the next several weeks, if you have any questions, please reach out. We'll go over it and then obviously we'll dig deep at the budget workshop. Happy to take any questions if you have them.
First off, I want to thank you and staff for presenting a very fiscally responsible budget and all the hard work that went into this. So thank you. Looking forward to discussing this at the end of October. Anybody else? Jennifer?
I just had a quick question. Can the camera van be used for anything else besides its intended purpose? Do you know what I'm getting at?
Not really. Yeah, I do. Not really. Just because of how it's secured in the van, it takes up the whole back part of that van, right?
I was
So-
thinking we could throw grocery carts, all kinds of
Yeah,
stuff back
no,
there. Okay.
no, can't for that, unfortunately.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
Yeah.
Oh,
good-
but can
good
camera
thought.
be used for something else?
Run
too?
our own.
The what?
Can the camera aspects of it be?
If you've got a pipe and you need a camera, it can be used for
Okay.
that. So.
Anybody else? All right, Regan, thank you very much.
You bet.
Next is new business item number 4, authorize the city manager to sign a letter to the Washington State Department of Ecology for 164th Avenue Southeast Contamination Control. Selena.
Yeah, good evening, council. You have before you tonight a letter to Department of Ecology regarding the toxic cleanup program. A little bit about why this is in front of you tonight. So historically, the Foss Market was a gas station that was commissioned in 1999. And since then, the market has been on the voluntary cleanup program for Department of Ecology. And if you get time later, you can go and look at, there's a slew of documents and reports and efforts that have been undertaken by the market to watch this issue to make sure that they voluntarily clean that up. And so the time has come. The Foss Market came and they worked with a consultant and they did their remediation that was necessary under the voluntary program with DOE for toxic cleanup. As part of their exploratory evaluation, it was identified that some of that toxin has now made its way into the 164th Avenue roadway. And so Department of Ecology and the consultant for Foss Market reached out to us and basically said, you know, you don't really need to do anything about it at this point. But what you do need to do is acknowledge it and just make it very clear that in the future, should you do any right-of-way work in that area or otherwise, that you will be the responsible party to ensure the workers that do work in that roadway are aware that that toxic, area is there so that they can make proper decisions when doing their work. And so ultimately, we had 2 options. We could do like a big like contractual requirement, or Department of Ecology said, you can just write a letter. And so under the advisement of our team, we decided to write the letter in accordance with the WAC. And that's what you have in front of you tonight. Ultimately, the restrictions and requirements are outlined in there, but it speaks to the groundwater use that, we're not going to be drilling or extracting groundwater within this area. soil disturbance restrictions that we're gonna be mindful and limit the amount of disturbance in 164th. Obviously taking care of the workers that have to be within that area, that we're giving them no proper notification. And that obviously we're not gonna interfere with any remedial actions in the future. And so what we did, we wrote that letter that's presented to the council tonight, ultimately for Regan to sign. Once that, should the council so choose, once that letter is signed, we will submit that to DOE. They will be able to close out the Foss Market remedial action, voluntary action, and then they've got it on the record that we're aware of the scenario. Is there any questions?
Thank you, Selena. Does anybody have any questions for Selena? Beth?
So they remediated ish. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, they did not unintentional. I mean, they did what they thought they needed to do, but now we have infected property that we need to deal with at some point possibly.
Potentially, we don't have to deal with it. I mean, it's covered under a roadway right now.
Okay.
A lot of that remediation on the private property is because you're gonna want to do redevelopment or otherwise, and so that soil contamination needs to be clear, to be mitigated for any future development on that site or expansion.
So what if they decided to develop that anywhere, the partial, the right of way would need to be kind of included in that, because chance it's gonna get disturbed. No?
Sorry, not necessarily. We're not being required to clean up. We're not on the voluntary list and we're not being required. So because think about it's under the roadway, it's fairly capped at this point, right? And so we wouldn't force that request on any future development. But we would have to inform them that, hey, should you have to cut into the roadway for utilities or otherwise, just so you know, there's this scenario here. Now, could someone choose to do something about it out of the, desire of that? Of course, but from the purpose of a toxic cleanup, we are not required to do that.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, before us is the potential to authorize the city manager to sign a letter to the Washington State Department of Ecology for 164th Avenue Southeast contamination control. Council wish to take action tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, this seems like an understandable way to deal with this issue. It's protected and fine, and likely not a whole lot is going to be happening. And when it does, in 50 years, when we need to improve that area, will have been put on notice essentially that there is a situation. And so from a liability perspective, we'll absolutely ensure that all folks involved in the work will be aware. So thank you for putting this together and coming up with a way to mitigate.
Joe, thank you, Jennifer. Joe, would you like to speak to your second?
No, thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion?
I would just, sorry, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, this is pretty typical for TCP. This is how they often deal with these toxic plumes, is they go out and mitigate, and if they need to treat contaminated water in situ, they can pump it out, treat it, put it back in, or they can excavate it. Often people want all the contaminants to be removed, and that's often not the case. Sometimes they leave it in place, like Selena was saying, if it's capped and it's not likely to be disturbed, it's not going to go anywhere. And the cost of pulling that out is prohibitive. So I appreciate that doesn't all, it's taken me a long time to get used to that too. Well, of course, dig it up and treat it and just send it somewhere else. But sometimes the best option is to leave it where it is, cap it, monitor it, but be transparent so that future, if there's any development, to say, yeah, there's contamination here. And if you're going to dig into the ground, you're going to have additional restrictions on what you can do. So I appreciate it. I'm going to support this. So.
All right, thank you, Sean. It's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to sign a letter to the Washington State Department of Ecology for 164th Avenue Southeast contamination control. All those in favor state aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Selena. Next up is new business item number 5. Consider a resolution opposing the Kroger Albertsons merger and authorizing joining the filing of an amicus brief. Regan, is this you or
Yeah.
Mark?
Thank you, Mayor. So in October 2022, Kroger and Albertsons announced their intent to merge. The Pacific Northwest is one of several regions where there's a large concentration of those stores. Kroger is the Fred Meyer QFC, Albertsons is Safeway. In fact, with this merger, Washington State is impacted the heaviest. Covington has one store, our Safeway, which is on the list to be sold. Under the proposal, the stores would be sold to CNS Wholesale Grocers. They're a wholesale distributor. They currently run 23 stores in the state of New York. And if this went through, they would become the largest grocer in the state of Washington. And so there's some concerns with that. After the merger announcement, the Federal Trade Commission issued an administrative complaint and authorized a lawsuit in federal court. In January 2024, the Washington State Attorney General also filed a lawsuit to block the proposed Kroger-Albertsons grocery merger. In that lawsuit, the Attorney General asserts the proposed merger of the two largest Washington supermarket companies and the proposed divestment of Washington stores would severely limit shopping options for consumers. So attachment 1 contains a proposed resolution opposing the Kroger-Albertsons merger. A number of Washington cities, including Kirtland, Redmond, Kenmore, and Bellingham, have similar resolutions. In addition, Covington could join other cities in submitting a motion in the King County Superior Court requesting leave to file an amicus brief. The amicus brief, the purpose of one is to provide the court with additional information, arguments, and perspectives that they may not otherwise have in their decision-making process. So that's what's before you tonight. Mark, I can answer any questions you might have. I know we've provided some additional information on this to you previously. So up to council to any questions?
Council have any questions? John?
I assume there's, we pass this motion, there's no liability for the city. We can always pass motions. It's in our First Amendment right. If we file an amicus brief, is there any liability on us other than we're just adding additional information to the court?
No liability would come from either of these actions.
Okay.
Other than people would know you oppose the merger.
Yeah.
All right, there's a potential to approve the proposed resolution opposing the Kroger-Albertsons merger and authorizing joining in the submission of an amicus brief. There motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Joe, would you like to speak to your motion?
This would create a giant grocery monopoly if this merger were to be allowed. That would increase prices for us. That would ruin many households because food is already expensive. And this merger being allowed to happen would close down one of the major places that we all shop at. It would close down the QFC in Maple Valley, and I'm pretty sure Safeway and Maple Valley would also be closed. So we would be left with 3 places to shop on 516, Fred Meyer, and Costco. That would not be good. It would also close the Safeway on 132nd in Kent. So it would harm, this merger would not only harm Covington, it would harm many along the 516 corridor. It would harm many in the state of Washington because it would make food deserts more apparent. And this would not be good. Monopolies should not exist. And I am very much for us fighting against this merger.
Thank you, Joe. Jennifer, would you like to speak to your second?
I agree with everything Joe said. You can quote me. It's a rare event.
Wow. How you feeling?
I'm writing this down. This never happens.
Anybody else wishing to speak for or against the motion? Beth?
Sherman Antitrust, 1890, like some of these same behaviors, like our forefathers and those that have gone before us know what happens when we let these types of things happen and the negative impacts they have, and that won't go away. It hasn't gone away. And so for all of the reasons that Joe and Jennifer has confirmed. We need to make sure that we're standing by our community, and I don't want to, I know that they're trying to do the best for their businesses, but they're not the only players in this marketplace, and we need to make sure that we're advocating for residents.
Thank you, Beth. Anybody else wish to speak for or against the motion? Debbie?
Thank you. I just want to say I've heard from a number of residents who are so adamantly opposed to this, and I don't think I think they were venting more than expecting that city council would do anything about it. So I'm proud that we can likely agree on this to move forward. And also, as I think was mentioned in the letter when I read earlier, a number of jobs are at stake in our community and Maple Valley and Kent. So we're doing the right thing.
Thank you, Debbie. I just want to say, I remember when Safeway and Albertsons merged and Hagen bought a lot of the stores, and then within months, they were all vacant. I don't want to see that happen because that always happens during a merger. So I totally support this as well. It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed resolution opposing the Kroger Albertsons merger and authorizing joining in the submission of an amicus brief. All those in favor state aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you all very much. That concludes new business for tonight. Looking at future agenda, we do have commission interviews on October 22nd, a joint session with the Human Services, and our council meeting starting on the at 7 p.m. that night. Is there anything else council would like to see brought forward? All right. With that, we'll move into council staff comments. Start with Adam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Recently, we purchased a device called a RAP, which we use to detain and prevent assault from assaultive suspects. We haven't used it yet. We hope not to use it a lot, but it is another tool for us to safely take people into custody and take them to jail should it be needed. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Adam. Ethan.
Good evening, council. Nothing from me tonight.
Great. Thanks, Ethan. Don.
Just one thing I have, just had some information that I heard that I got today was some good information from DOT that we got some grant funding for a basically some pedestrian safety project. So if you remember a couple of years ago, we had a local road safety plan that we put together. We had submitted that. That's how we got funding for the flashing beacons at the roundabouts. That's how we got the funding for Timberlane Boulevard and some of that sidewalk along there. So we updated our plan and we put in for some projects again. And a couple of the projects that were funded is some radar speed feedback signs on 256th at the new Covington Elementary School. That was one of the things that was being asked for because of the speeding along that in 156th. So we got funding for that. And then the other piece was we submitted to extend an asphalt path south of CCP to the first intersection there at 244th. So that kind of connects that neighborhood. And just quickly, if I can share my screen here, I will show you. I promise it will be quick. So can you guys see that yet?
No.
Hopefully it's
coming up now.
Yeah.
So here we go. So this is the Covington Elementary, I mentioned that one. And then this next piece is, so here's CCP up here. We would be extending basically just an asphalt path along this side. And then we would have another flashing beacon crosswalk here with the RFBs. And we have some ADA ramp that we'd have to do as part of that What that pretty much does then is connect a pathway to, because there's sidewalk along this way for North Park Meadows and North Park. We did submit for further down, that didn't get funded. So if I did show you the third one, that would be one that didn't get funded, but we're making progress. So that's exciting. We plan to, based on the schedule, we plan to get started in that in early next year. It is no funding match, so it's 100% covered by those funds. It's $317,000. But it is federal funding, so that's all the fun that gets to go along with that. But so that's good news, and we'll be getting going on that, and we'll keep you posted as that goes along. With that, I don't have any other comments.
Great, thank you, Don. And it's great to see the landscaping going in on 516.
Yes, looks good.
Yes, thank you. Selena.
Council, I just want to thank you for a great roundtable meeting tonight, joint session with our planning commission. And also just thank you for entertaining kind of this alternative option for us to present this information to you. The alternative to what we did tonight would have been bringing back each one of these elements piece by piece. And just given the timeline, that felt very hard. And so I just want to commend you for your thoughtfulness tonight and your feedback to the staff, and obviously the planning commission and their great effort. They've spent a lot of care on that document. And then just my team in general. Yeah, I'm looking forward to bringing that back to you in December. Thank you.
Thank you, Selena. Casey.
Thank you. I was just going to mention, as you're working through your budget workbooks, if you have any questions as you're going through things, please feel free to reach out to Regan or I, and I'm happy to go over any numbers with you. It's my favorite part. So.
I thought you were going to say just reach out to Regan only.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Mark.
Thank you, Council. I want to thank you all for the discussion regarding the Kroger-Albertsons merger opposition and joining the amicus brief. I'll get in touch with Kirkland right away because they're taking the lead on this, and I will let you know as we have additional updates. And thank you for taking action on this quickly, because the briefing schedule requires us to get motions in by the middle of October, which is just a week or two away from where we're at right now. So thank you very much. There's no executive session tonight, and I have no additional comment.
Thank you, Mark. Regan.
Nothing further from me.
Thank you, Regan. Krista.
Good evening, council. It may feel a little early to ask you this, but as you know, typically council cancels the second December meeting each year. With that, yes, I would like to ask if you'd like to cancel the December 24th meeting.
I did ask her to ask for both of them, but she only did.
Sean wants it to be on, but I think we should cancel it.
He'll be lonely.
Okay, so I believe I'm seeing council consensus. Cancel the
Yes.
24th.
Please.
Thank you. That's all I have for this
I
evening.
do have one request for our meeting, the first meeting in December. Since that's going to be a long meeting with our executive session, to not possibly book interviews beforehand.
We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina. Thanks, Krista.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say that I know after our meeting or during our meeting, Selena, you mentioned that other cities, aren't even going to come in anywhere close to January. And it feels so good to know that we are in such good hands. And the team is so strong and capable and talented, and what a weight lifted off of our shoulders to know that our team is not just amazing, but the best, just the best. So thank you. Thank you to everyone. And well, there's a lot, and the planning commission and just everyone, because they do just such a fabulous job. And by the way, it's so easy to listen to you present. It's actually entertaining. I really appreciate it, along with everyone else. It was just her presenting for this meeting. But Purple Lights Night was amazing. As always, I always get teary-eyed at some point, and I don't even have anyone that I'm so blessed. I don't even having one in my immediate family that is affected by this, but it was great to see everyone that was there. The weather was amazing, turned out awesome, even in, well, October, right? Almost October, it was the end, September. Great meeting. Thank you to everyone. I cannot wait to spend a Saturday with you massaging the budget. As Regan said, I thought it was very appropriate. And have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Christina. Beth?
I have to reiterate what everybody says about this planning meeting that we had this evening. And as you know, some of us can attest being on the planning commission, getting handed a book that had 1,000 pages in it, like that was a lot of work by staff, and you all make it so easy, as easy as it can be, because you still have to go through and read it as a commissioner, and they put a lot of volunteer hours into making that happen. And so just thank you for all of that. Yeah, I'm really glad to hear about the grant that we got, Dawn, because I will have to say, in my head, I hadn't submitted any decision cards, and I thought, oh, well, you know, we've got all this money from this tax, let's get some flashing beacons. And then I'm like, oh, I guess not. We won't be doing that. So I'm really thankful that we at least can check one of them off of the list next year, especially in that area. We hear a lot about it from the kids, the elementary school kids, even the high schoolers. So it's really important for people of all ages. You know, that's a really important, having safe crosswalks and safe sidewalks. And then Purple Light Nights. Yeah, I think we had 46 registered walkers. A few other people probably showed up. And then some people left, and then more people came for the tree lighting. Raised about $648 just through the donations that were made that night. And that's not including donations made directly to some of the nonprofits that didn't go through the Rotary booth there. So that was fantastic. And a huge thanks to the city staff that had to work on that Saturday and make that walking course safe. You know, we had police there, all the in and outs of getting into the storage unit throughout the summer. And it's a lot of collaborative efforts from a lot of folks in the community. So appreciate all that to keep that event going.
Thank you, Beth. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The RFA had its most recent meeting last Wednesday. A couple of things we talked about, approved the 6-year capital improvement plan. So similar to what the city does here. It's going to develop a couple new fire stations, most notably in Maple Valley. We approved the donation policy. The RFA does get people donating funds to the RFA on occasion. Occasionally those come with restrictions, and so the policy further clarifies how we would handle those and actually encourage if there are restrictions to donate to other services so that it makes the accounting easier for the RFA. We talked about and heard about a new ladder truck that's being ordered. If I understood correctly, it'll be a couple of years before we get that, if I remember. I think so.
The lead times on
Yeah.
apparatus.
Like 3 years, he said. Yeah. So we're working on the makeup of that truck, but it'll be 3 years before it's developed. It's just incredible. And then kind of always I don't want to say it's my favorite, but it's one of my most touching parts of the chief has a life-saving award that they give out for community members that step up and initiate CPR or other life-saving activities. And we presented it to a gentleman that helped save his neighbor. And so the person that stepped up, his family came, but also the person who was assisted, his coworkers came and part of his family. So it was like 30 people that had come that were impacted by that person seeing someone in need and taking action. And so it's inspiring. It's hard to follow that type of stuff. So anyway, but it's interesting. It's how many people in our community do see some other person in need and actually do fight through that I shouldn't get involved or, I don't know what to do and they actually do. So anyway, it's good night.
Great. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Debbie.
Thank you. At Purple Lights Night, I worked at the Rotary booth and I had two moms with kids come and tell me their story, which was really rough. One mom had gone through domestic abuse 2 times by 2 different husbands. So it was touching and it reminded me of why we do what we do on that night. And Beth, good job because you're the coordinator of that event. Public safety has become kind of an issue, and not an issue in our family, but we've been talking about emergency preparedness. We've got family in Florida right now that are being impacted by the hurricanes, but watching what's happening down there, they get so much lead time. And unfortunately, there are people like some of my family that are refusing to leave, but we don't get lead time for the big one that's going to happen to us. I feel fortunate that we don't get the types of storms that they do in other parts of the country. But what we are likely to get in our lifetime, we won't have any pre-notice of that. So being prepared is something that our family's really worked over the years of having a to-go bag. For me, it's actually a suitcase on wheels for all my, bottled wine and makeup. But my husband's going through the CERT training right now. So we're kind of talking about what he's learning and how important it is. And something that we thought of yesterday is reaching out to our neighborhood social media and asking, or just letting them know, Mr. Hartsock is getting his CERT. This is what it is. It's offered by the city and fire department once a year, next year, hopefully 2 times. And we, would really hope people would take advantage of this. But we want to kind of canvass our neighborhood and find out who else is CERT trained so that we can let our neighborhood know in the event of an emergency. You've got the Hartsocks up here and you've got, Smiths over here and Jones over here. And we will all be neighbors helping each other because that's how they're surviving in Florida. And the FEMA can't get to them, the feds can't, state, local government, and we'll be in the same boat. I mean, the services won't be able to get to us in our homes quickly enough. So the more people that are trained, the better off we are. It takes a little bit of burden off the city and our services. And it made me think about when we talk to HOAs or on National Night Out, that maybe we can advocate for the CERT training and making sure that your neighborhood knows within the neighborhood who is trained, who can you reach out to? Because it is all about neighbors helping neighbors. So that was just, I just wanted to share that that's something that kind of fell on my heart today.
Just be prepared and have a corkscrew with you.
Yeah,
It's in the box.
Oh, that's even better.
Did you pack your electric bottle wide open? No box, last
All right.
longer.
Thanks,
Smart.
Debbie. Jennifer.
I'm adding wine to my
Okay.
pick now. Genius. I went to movie night and saw the lawn at the town center. I was impressed. There was actual grass and lawn to park.
Adam mows it weekly.
I did relay my feedback to Regan. It could not have been better organized, especially for a first-time event. I saw Krista there. She got front row.
Wonder who she had to know.
From the communication ahead of time that I received via email confirming I was going to be there because so many people were on the wait list. Then I got another email what to expect when I showed up. When I pulled up, Jackie was there with like a little card with kind of like tips, drive-in etiquette and tips. There was even a radio station to tune into. And then people were there assisting, telling us which row to park in, asking if I was gonna, which direction I was gonna park, if my hatch was gonna be up. So very organized parking situation. It was spaces were painted. The Sanderson sisters were walking around, and whatever organization or company that we hired them from, they were the best characters I've ever seen at any event in all of my life. They were in full character. I mean, full character, not just dressed like them, chasing children, smelling them, talking like them, doing the lip. The show was great. Free popcorn was passed out, raffle tickets to win prizes. They texted you, if you won a prize. I mean, it was perfectly done. I mean, really and truly, I have to say, totally impressed, and I can't wait for more. So next time there is one, if you guys want to go, you have to sign up right away. But it was phenomenal. The city did an amazing job. I am gonna miss council cleanup. I think I'm the one person that wasn't available that weekend. I'll be at a wedding in California, so have fun without me. I'll be in the sunshine. And thank you so much for getting that amicus, tomato brief so quickly. I mean, that's really, I think, well, I know it is extremely important to at least make our voice known. I hope that other cities really step up and do something similar. And I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Joe?
Nothing much for me tonight, except remember, if you, like me, haven't applied for for the regional appointments with SCA, do so by the 17th. I plan to do so. I have a teacher workshop day on Friday, so I know at some point I'll have nothing to do. So I will be spending 15 to 20 minutes doing that. And then I have pick tomorrow night. We will be virtual, so I will be doing it from my car as Ryan is taking his driver's ed final. So I get to sit there and just do all that. Other than that, I hope everyone is having a fun fall and getting ready for Halloween. Looking forward to watching Hocus Pocus about 45 more times with Logan. It is his favorite Halloween movie, and so
You would love it, right?
The first one or the second one?
First one. We will watch the second one.
They're
Probably
both
not
good.
we probably won't watch as many times as the first one because sentimental value to the first one for me.
I can't wait for the third one to come out. It's in the works. So, thank you, Joe. The Purple Light Nights, just that hits home every time, and I'm so glad that Rotary took it over to keep it going, and seeing people there from the original Covington Domestic Violence Task Force, and it just gets better. So thank you for doing that. It's a great event that helps bring memories and why it's important. This Saturday is the Covington Chamber Makers Market over on the lawn at the town center. Brought up the community cleanup on the 19th. Our own tree lighting for Christmas is December 7th. I am doing a joint coffee with the mayors, with Mayor Ralph, and we're going to do it at Bruchelle's. And the reason Ralph brought that up is because a lot of the kids that go to Kentwood are from East Hill. And so we're going to do it at lunchtime to try and, because it gets pretty busy. Yeah. Back on October 2nd, I had the pleasure to go to the King County Public Safety Summit, and it was a partnership for solutions to organized retail crime. It was put on by Challenge Seattle, and quite a few mayors of King County were there. But we had speakers from Homeland Security, the CEO of Nordstrom's. We had Jesse Anderson, the undersheriff of King County, Brian Dodge from Retail Industry Leaders Association. We had U.S. attorneys, attorney generals, King County prosecuting attorney, Seattle city attorney. I mean, it was 4 hours, Chief? Must have been 4 hours long.
Yeah, it was 4 hours.
And what was really nice is that our own chief and Detective Ramirez were brought out because they are very successful with new ways to help curb retail theft. It was very impressive, and the room was packed. There's quite a few people in that room, and a lot of great questions, a lot of, and they published organizing a public-private partnership to defeat organized retail crime. Did you get one, Chief?
I did.
Okay. So they didn't have many extra copies. So if you guys want to share, if you want to read them, I've got 4 extra copies here that happened to get into my bag. It was not retail theft. It was organized. They were sitting at a table and everybody vacated it, so I grabbed them so they didn't go in the trash. I was recycling them.
Yes.
So, but I've got them here. It is very, a very good in talking about what needs to be done to curb organized retail crime. And they showed the gal and her friends from Whatcom County that came and hit Lululemon and Ulta, and how they were caught, and they showed videos and how nobody wanted when they were in the stores and stuff. So that was very impressive with all the good work. It took what, a year to be able to get enough evidence on them too, but they had guns and cars, and they would hit Skagit Valley, come down to Alderwood Mall, Bellevue Square, South Center, and Tacoma Mall in one day. They would hit all of those from Whatcom County and hit them all, and they would meet their fence down in Tacoma. So, yeah, but they didn't stop there. They hit Portland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and a lot of other cities on the way. They were, yeah. So it was
resourceful.
Yeah, so I'm glad that that's going through. That is all I have. So with that, we will move into our second public comment period. Excuse me. Speakers will state their name, organization, and whether they are a Covington resident. Comments are directed to City Council, not the audience or staff, and comments are to be related to city business. Comments are not intended for conversation or debate and are limited to 4 minutes per speaker. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to address council? Is there anybody online wishing to address council? Seeing no further comments, we do not have an executive session. This council meeting is adjourned at 9:10.